Hey YouTube, this is Warren Marshall, and I thought I would do a prop video today for a change instead of me talking like I tend to be doing the last few videos. But I saw an Arrimus 3D video the other day, and Arrimus is one of my favorite channels on YouTube. He so he did this knife prop, and I didn't even actually watch the video because I saw him starting. He showed the reference image, and I thought to myself, we could totally build that, but I don't want to see how he did it because I'm going to use Booleans and stuff like that. So I'm going to be very moto-centric. Just a quick plug for Arrimus 3D. If you're not subscribed to him on YouTube, you really should be. He uses Max for everything, but we're not going to hold that against him. He's, his modeling techniques tend to be pretty agnostic, and he's just a good guy to watch all around. He's well-spoken, he's smart, and he knows what he's doing. So anyway, let's get on with it. Okay, so this is the reference image that I took from his video. Now this is a cropped screenshot of his video that I then took and rotated so it was sort of straight. So that's why it kind of looks like a pixel fest, but it's good enough that I can reference it. So I'm going to be using a technique that I've seen Arrimus use many times. He's very good at well, one of the things he's taught me is to not be afraid to get in there and just start muscling polygons around. Like, I used to be very concerned about, am I doing things the right way? Is this the correct thing to do? Blah, blah, that kind of thing. And watching his channel, I've gained a real appreciation for just laying a polygon down and cutting into it and just force it to be what you want it to be. So we're going to go that way with this. We're going to start with a polygon, cut it out, and start Booleaning it. That's a hard word to say. Let's go. So the way that he would approach it on his channel would be to create a polygon that basically covers it. Now I have a hotkey to flip me into topology mode in Modo, and I find this works well for just generating a polygon that fits the basic dimensions that I need. So I'll sort of just kind of pull this in. I'm likely only going to worry about the 1/2, then we'll just mirror it later. But okay, something like that. Then pull out the handy dandy cut tool and just start to slice directly into this polygon. And this is something that took me a while to get used to because this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel like what they teach you. When you're learning modeling, they teach you to, oh, let's make a cylinder, make a whatever, and then let's, use a procedural this or that or the other, and try to get the shape established, up front and that kind of thing. Or through parameters, right? Try to get the shape established through parameters. And one thing I have really seen a lot of value in, in watching Arrimus is that there is a lot of value in just getting in there, like I was saying, and muscling it. I can see there's going to be a ridge here. It's going to run down, so we'll just lay that basic topology in right up front. And then there's an edge here that sort of comes in, runs down. Actually, what I'm going to do is change my visibility options so I can see these vertices. Where... Oh, active meshes, right? Oh, I see. All right. I'm clicking the wrong thing. I'm looking for this checkbox that's staring me in the face. Yeah, there we go. So I want the verts to show up so I can at least somewhat try to align them because I want to have them basically that's unfortunate. So we'll just continue on with cutting this. One thing I'll say is that if you want to do this kind of cutting, you got to make sure that the inside polygons checkbox is turned on, because that's what allows you to cut inside, obviously, of the polygon. Now, otherwise you're restricted to just cutting the border, which is not what we want in this case. I'm gonna hide that backdrop now. So we have a basic blade here, and I'm just gonna connect this up to the edge because I want to have contiguous, well, obviously. But this is going to be a process of slowly building up the topology. I'm going to turn this back on for a second because I want to be able to see where everything is and make sure that I've got, yeah, we're going to add a few extra cuts in here. And then I'm going to connect from here to here, and we're going to see if that works out, because I think it might. And then that to there, and that might give me enough control to get that little taper happening. Let's hope. Let's hope. Make a few more connections in here. And again, I'm using the cut tool. I'm just shift clicking, dragging, shift clicking, dragging, because I want to get this do I want that there? Maybe there would be better, because then I can get a quad thing going across there. I normally don't care about quad meshes and all that, but when it comes to certain types of topology, it actually is fairly important, because you need to you'll be able to control that smoothing. You know what? I'm probably good with. I'm just going to leave that like that. I think hide the backdrop and turn off that. So yes, this looks like a holy mess right now, but we've got the basis of what we need to turn this into a serviceable knife blade block mesh. Okay, now that we're here, I'm going to actually back up a little bit, and I'm going to change this cut to be something more like this and get rid of that. I'm really not someone who cares about quads, like I was saying, but for something like this, I don't know, I just feel like the knife is going to want to subdivide nicely or smoothly. And if I don't do this, it's not going to be able to do that. Right, okay. That's the, I know those are triangles, but when I mirror the mesh, they'll become quads. It'll be fine. Trust. So looking at the image, you can see we've got, there's that little scoop in there, then the blade, then there's a section in the middle that's kind of raised up and hard. So what I'm going to do is grab the blade section here, and I'm just going to pull it wait, now I'm going to grab this, and let's just pull this back, because we got to start to shape the blade a little bit. So we'll pull it back, I don't know, -1. These units are kind of arbitrary. They're much more important to the they're much more important to be relative to the scale of the mesh, not like exact measurements or anything. We'll pull him back 0.35, something like that. Actually, maybe half to even a little bit more than half, maybe like that. Okay. So if I do this now, you can see we're already starting to form this little scoop shape, but obviously it's, it has a long way to go. So what I'm going to do is no, we're going to keep that. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that in, just to give me the support system that I need. we're going to grab this, and if I go into subdivision mode and I hit my weight hotkey, that sets everything to 100%. Now we have a nice weighted front on the knife. And the only thing left to do is going to be to grab this blade, hit him, or let me get all of that. Hit all of that with a harden as well. And then to give it the actual edging, what I'm going to do is grab that blade, except for the top segment, and pull it back like 1 or whatever. Okay, so then if we go into subdivision mode, this is the basics of what we're dealing with. We've got the little scoop here, more or less. Yes, we got the little scoop happening there. We've got the hard edge to the blade, and if we look at the reference image, that's pretty close. And frankly, that's close enough for me. I'm willing to move forward with that. So, next steps are going to be to add some thickness to this, and then get it ready for its Boolean treatment. So the next step, as far as I can tell, is going to be to give this the thickness that it needs, because yeah, we can't Boolean it like this. So I'm going to select the outer border, do an edge extend. I just installed 13.1, so some of my tools aren't set to auto activate. That's just something that happens every version for me. So I extend that back. I'm going to scale them flat. Then I'm going to move them with vertex snapping back to the edge of that blade. I'm going to merge vertices to get rid of all the duplicates that would have appeared along here. And now we have a blade that's thick, but comes to a razor point on the edge. We don't need this middle part. And if I hit tab, okay, we have some unfortunately hardened edges up here, but that's easily fixed with a hotkey. So I have a hotkey to set 100% edge weight. I also have a hotkey to set 0% edge weight. So we'll smooth that out so it looks like the reference image. The knife blade looks fine still. We've got a bit of a mess here, but that was expected. So we're gonna hand massage this a little bit to kind of put him back, pull him back, and grab this, give that a harden. I wonder if I need to harden that. No, not really. Okay, so this, okay, so the blade now has some thickness to it. It's got an edge here that more or less works. It looks like a bit of a pinch here. But I wonder if I can soften that up, but I'm not going to worry about it just yet. Because I think, or at all really, I think this is fine. Yeah, that looks good. It looks good. So really quick, we're just going to mirror this over, weld that, and then grab this middle section, soften it, except for the very tip of the blade, which we want to be hard. All right, and that gives me a nice blade profile from the front. Yeah, more or less fits the dimensions. And we can do the same thing, or we should be able to do the same thing in the other direction. Mirror that way, weld the verts. And the blade should look fine from all angles. Yeah, looks good. I actually like this transition now that I see it, done like that. All right. So from here, we're going to, well, I'm going to fix up the topology just a bit, because I don't want to go too crazy with it, but I do want it to be manageable. If I delete. this out. That's still all fine, and it gives me a solid edge going around the top. Oh, I'll bet. No? Yeah, this is some of the fun. When you start smashing together weird topologies, you end up with Moto can't figure out what actually is attached to anything else. Not in a tragic way, but sometimes it's annoying. So anyway, next up, we're going to fix up some topology and hit some Booleans. Okay, so to get ready to finish this off with Booleans, I want to. I did notice on the reference image there's a seam down the middle of the knife here at the bottom. So ours is a little spongy there, but it's a pretty easy fix. I just grab that and I harden up that edge. Go out of here, do the same thing on the other side. So now it's got that shiny cut between the edges. And if I render that real quick, that is showing up and it looks fine. So I am okay with that. Okay. So the next thing is we're going to use Booleans to punch some holes out of here, and there's going to be, I'll warn you up front. There's going to be some ugly topology here. There's going to be some ugly, just like some N-Gons, triangles, stuff flying around. It's going to get pretty borderline offensive, but we're going to do it anyway. So this is the way that I would approach it. So we'll turn on the backdrop item, and I'm going to use the Seneca Menard quick Boolean script window that comes with his scripts. So just so I can get to the subtract option here. Now, before we do that, we have to have something to subtract, obviously. So I'm going to go into the front view, go back in topology mode, and I'm going to create cutters. We're going to do a 12-sided cutter here, I think. And we're going to work with this edge over here because this is the one that's closest to to the original image. So put that one there, copy him down, copy him down, and also put this one here because this one needs to get done as well. Now I'm going to grab these two, position the work plane there, because that should give me a good mirror. If I go back to the front view, well, yeah, I believe I do have a good mirror there. I just have to pull these over so they're intersecting. Now let me double check this. Yeah, they're pushing in about the same amount. Although they look weirdly offset. So I'm just going to quickly. Yeah, they are a little off. So I'm going to just use this to snap to this vertex over here and just line them up horizontally, just so I know they're in the right relative spot to each other. Okay. Those will be the little side nodules. Although I'm telling you, it feels... See, sometimes when you're doing this kind of stuff, you want to make some judgment calls. Like, I think it would look better with them sort of pulled in a little more, so it's like more accented. Like, it's more severe, I guess. That's probably going to feel better in the end. Just my head is screaming at me, don't let that go, don't let that go. Okay. This middle polygon, this middle cutter, we're going to make 24 sides. We'll center that on X. First, we'll center that on X. There we go. Scale this down and just position him so he lands in a good relative spot. Should be there. Yes, that looks even. Just want to double check things, kind of eyeball them. These look a little bit like they're not the same as what's going on over here. So I'm going to get a little... Moto's playing the we're not gonna snap things properly game. There we go. Because that's pretty much exactly what that's doing. He's poking in. All right, good, fine. This'll do. So with this in mind, we're just gonna go with a big. I'm gonna save this, in case something happens. Grab all of this stuff, select those, and just say subtract. So it knocks those out of there. Now we'll jump in and do a little bit of cleanup because I know there's some extra little shards and edges that have hold on, there you go. Little shards and edges that got generated because some stuff wasn't exactly sitting in the right spot. I knew that before I even hit the button. All right. And then him, and then if we F2 it, and then we merge it. Okay, so here we have a rough version of that knife with the proper cuts out of it. Now the trick is that I'm going to need to subdivide this again, but how do I do that when Moto won't even bother to try? It's just like, this is a holy mess, and I don't want to do it. Now I could just tell this to be, say, yeah, go ahead and triangulate those faces, and then it will do it. And then I can throw in some edge weighting like this and get these holes all smoothed out. But the problem is the topology around the outside of these holes is terrible. And that's not normally a huge concern of mine, but it's a concern here because I want to do a few extra things. So here's how I would actually approach that. So I select the faces that I want to work with, and I'm going to do an inset on them using the bevel tool. So I'm going to inset them to a point when, like stuff like down here, like this. Actually, hold on. Since that's going to be a problem for me, let's go ahead and select those. And this is all flat, so I can just go ahead and pull that down just to give me a little extra bandwidth here. A little extra space to play. And I'll pull these out to maybe here-ish, because I've got to watch these corner bits too. But once you've done that, you're in a much better position to do what you wanted to do before. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hit this with a triangulation, but now it's all being bordered with nice topology. So now it's almost being held up correctly, and I haven't even done anything. So if I select, so to clean this up, I'll select the front bit of this and weight it. Select this, get rid of the blade, weight that. Select this and this, hit those with a weight, hit that with a weight, weight that edge, weight that edge, so we get them, laying over correctly and all that. Okay, so now this is a subdivided mesh, and it's clean and everything looks nice. And if I render it, you can see the rounded edge shaders kicking in and taking care of all those edges for me. But I think we want to go a little bit further on this on these two cutouts in the center, because I don't think they're exactly where they should be. Well, I mean, they are where they're where they're supposed to be, but they're not all they could be, because I think they'll look cooler if they're beveled. And since we've added this ring of quads around the outside, we can very easily bevel this. We just select those rings, hit the bevel, pull them out, and we'll bevel those out to maybe right there. And we can do the same thing to this because he also has a ring of quads. Give him a quick bevel. Yeah, and I think that gives those holes, just a little more character. You could do the same thing In fact, I think we are going to do the same thing for this outer edge as well, just because I think it might look better if we did, if we gave it some you know, an on-purpose looking bevel. Oh, that's wrong. There we go. Yeah, I like that. And then the only thing you really have to clean up is just down there at the end. Just harden that face and then loosen off that other edge. So you see what's happening there. This comes down to a triangle. So I'm grabbing the triangle and I'm hardening the triangle, but that doesn't fix the whole thing because it comes down and then it has a hard edge. So then select that separating edge and take the hardness off of that. And now you've got that nice sort of scoop out look to it. And I can even, you know, I can back off the rounded edge shader now because it's a little strong now that we've beveled it ourselves. There we are. You know, I can really pull it back and get rid of the edge dodge, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think this is a good, this is a good high poly mesh. Yeah, we've got the knife in here. Looks like the reference. I don't see any obvious problems with the high poly. And the low poly won't be too much work at all, I don't think. So the low poly of this, I was working through it in my head, and I was trying to come up with try to come up with the path of minimal pain. That's always my goal. And yeah, most of this is pretty straightforward topology. It's really only this top face that's pretty mangled. I mean, it's smoothed correctly and it'll bake great, but that is the problem area. So I thought that the correct approach for this one is probably going to be to copy this high poly mesh off entirely, take it out of sub D, apply my low poly material to it, and then likely just, well, we're going to try this. We're just going to select that top mess and just delete it. And we're going to come and we're going to reconstruct it, but I think reconstructing it will actually be less work than trying to deal with it. So that's all punted. And then from here, yeah, everybody looks happy. Okay. And then from here, what I'm going to do is start to bridge things. So we're going to try. Okay, so to use symmetry, we're going to use symmetry to bridge this up manually. It's just the fastest way that I could think of doing this. So I'll start off just grabbing stuff that seems more or less kind of close to each other. And this mesh you're seeing whenever I hit bridge is because my bridge hotkey automatically sets up auto connection, which I want most of the time, but I don't want in this case. So I'm just going to have to live with turning that off each time. But we'll bridge up an area, seal it up, and then just throw in some cuts to make things happy topology wise. Polygon, polygon. It sort of feels like you know, hand geometry, I guess. Like I'm handling the job of the modeling app. What am I talking about? Like, I know it feels like there's probably a better way of doing this, but I'm just not sure what it would be at this point in time. So we're just going to go with this. And I'm sure that when I'm editing this video, I'm going to think of a better idea, or I'm going to realize that something I said sounded really stupid. But that's just the fear. Well, not the fear, that's just the problem with doing these videos. Is you often end up, you think of the, like when I'm doing them like this, kind of relatively unscripted, it's harder because if I make a mistake and I can't just say, oh, never mind, stop recording, I'll just fix that up and come back to it. That doesn't really work in this format, but it's fine. This is actually kind of cool because I very rarely get to work with Symmetry because it very rarely works for me. We've got some sort of I don't know, we got our wires crossed in the universe, and Symmetry just does not want to work with me. It's got complaints in with HR, and it's just it's bad. But we're getting along pretty good today, so I am all for it. Yeah, and I know both sides aren't exactly the same, but it doesn't really matter. These can clearly get bridged. This can get bridged. We'll bridge him and him. I'll just grab all of this and fill it in and break out my cut tool and cut up the triangles the way they need to be cut up. And that, I think, is going to result in a low poly mesh that I can actually use. Now granted, we probably could have spent more time on this low poly mesh. It doesn't feel entirely, it doesn't fit entirely right. It doesn't sit completely right in my head, because I think, we could have done a better and cleaner job. But for what it is, I think it's good. And I am tempted. I'm going to have a fool around here for a second. And try to just line these up a little bit better. Because I think regardless of what I do, the curve of the blade is going to be not exactly everything that I would have wanted for it to be. But this is just an example project, so I would likely, were I doing this for an actual client, I would, well, we could just go ahead and do that. I guess I would add an extra edge loop in here to kind of capture that curvature a little better. One there sounds good, although I don't want all that stuff up there. I just want the stuff down here. So do that. Wait, go back to Z. This. Split to first. And then we might as well just split this. Or we'll just do it manually then. Whatever you need. I'm here for you. Oh, that didn't really work out, did it? Weird. Alright. That's my usual relationship with symmetry, which is why I don't get along with it that well, but that's okay. All right, good enough. This is not going to be perfect, but it's pretty good. Now I'm wondering if I can use that edge smooth kit on this to space these out and make them pretty. Let's see. Or edge relax, I should say. Yeah. Now edge relax, that's a kit by Muriel Boldy. And I'll put a link to the description, or a link to it down in the description. It's something that I use a lot because it's just such a wonderful piece of software. Helps out with topology a lot. Okay, with this low poly done, such as it is, we're down to about 1,000 triangles, so that's fine for this. We're going to UV it and bake it in the next section. Okay, so to UV this thing, I've been mulling it over a little bit, and there's a few challenges here. Maybe what I'll do is try and lay down the seams, I guess. Actually, that's not what I want. Maybe that, and that. And then we'll pick that one, and that one. And then that one. Where did that go? Using the shortest path selection for this because I want to just kind of cruise around the top of the mesh. Just cruise around the mesh and select my seams. You can probably tell by how slow I am at this. I don't normally use this this shortest selection path tool, but it felt right. It felt right for this. Yeah, and I really can't think of a better tool for selecting edges, like for selecting those pieces. So with all of those seams selected, I am going to go ahead and fire off an unwrap, and let's see what happens here. Let's hit save and cross our fingers. Oh, okay. Well, that was quick. You came out good. You came out good. They should really be the same thing, but that's cool. So we'll merge those back together again. Now, I must have whiffed that somehow. That is a separate mesh. That's a separate mesh. This outer ring is kind of irritating because it wants to do this weird, like, you know, it wants to spin and twist around like a large intestine, which is kind of irritating and gross. Oh, there it goes. Okay, wait. How about that? How about that? Okay, that feels more like something that could work. Okay, let me make sure these islands are straight. All right, then pack that together. All right. Not the best unpack. So, all right. So just to back up and recap what I was doing there. It's a fairly simple shape, you know, relatively speaking. So I went back. So I went and I selected all the seams, all the edge loops where I wanted my seams to be. Then I fired up the unwrap command, which is just a standard command in Modo. It's right up here, the unwrap tool. Now, there were a few screw-ups here and there, so I went ahead and corrected those just by selecting islands and reprojecting them again with a hotkey. And now the reason this is packing like this is because there's this long UV island that wraps all the way around the top, and that is limiting how much Modo can do, you know, can pack things. So what I'm going to do is split this up. So I'm going to select these faces here, and how far does that go? Right to under there. That's where I wanted it. Okay, so I'm going to Control Shift, drag that off. I'm going to grab this one. That's okay, that's in a good spot. Control Shift, drag that off. Now we're going to repack it again. Now you see we get a much better pack because Modo doesn't have that super long island to deal with, and it means we can get these nice big islands to lay out and get a good amount of texel density on them. That's something that I, you know, will do at the end stages of a mesh. Is well, you know, when I'm UVing it, I'll have to go through and split some islands up just to get better texel, you know, density on the other islands. So I've got a macro set up that selects all the borders of my UV islands and then hardens them. So I'm going to run that. And once I do, we're going to set up a test texture and throw off a test bake. Now, if you've watched my channel for any amount of time, you know that I typically will do object-based normal maps. The way that we UV this is friendly for tangent-based normal maps, and this mesh doesn't look like it has a lot of weird complications, like shapes and weird stuff being projected. So we're just going to go with tangent-based normals on this. There's really no reason, you know, not to. We'll see if that's correct. We'll see if Modo agrees with me. So I have the low poly, I have the high poly. Now what I want to do is just throw in a morph map like normal, call it cage, push tool, push it out so that the high poly is completely covered by the low poly cage. It looks like it is. Reset the cage, turn on the normal map texture that I added to this, and we're going to give it a bake. So we'll bake object to texture, use the cage, go. Oh, all right. Looks like we're gonna have a bake. Excellent. Okay, so let me hop back in the viewport and have a look at the bake. That's got all of our stuff on there. Yeah, it's got our little beam down the center. It's got the edging, all that jazz. Yeah, some stuff could probably be a little higher poly, but I'm not too concerned about it. There's a little splooge-a-thon happening here. Which is not on here, but it is on here. I'm not quite sure why that is. But I could experiment with this and give that a, yeah. it's likely just the beveling that I did on the high poly made that not completely flat. It's not enough that I'm going to worry about it. So looking at this looks pretty solid. I think, you know, at a reasonable distance like this, if this was an inventory item, this looks fine. And we're going to shove this over to Substance Painter, I think, and just throw a smart material on it so you can see what that looks like. So here we are in Painter. I've imported the FBX, and I've got the tangent space normal that we baked in Modo, so I'm just going to drag that over, drop that on, and there you go. Now we've got all our smoothing on it, all of our bevels with our nice fat edging on everything. I do have regrets about the number of segments that I used for these circles. It's just not really enough that's making me happy, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good. So I'm going to bake the rest of the maps just using these two as reference points or whatever. Turn that, bake this. Let this run. This takes a second. The new Substance Painter is really pretty fast. Now, I like the way that shows you every single step as it's going on. That's kind of cool. So yeah, that's done. And do I have my my metals? I do. Well, let's just throw a few materials on here and just see what happens. Yeah, and there we go. We've got a starting of a game prop that can be used pretty readily. Kill this, kill this. How about the silver one? Yeah. So anyway, you get the idea, I think. But you probably want to take the edge of this and remove that, you know, that material, give it sort of a shinier part, put the logo on there with a stamp, that kind of thing. You get the idea. But I hope this was it was a little educational, if not somewhat entertaining at least. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video.